Hi, my name is Juhan, and I'll be talking about the movie called Spider-Man: Far From Home. And it's basically a movie that depicts a story of an uneasy adventure of Peter Parker who wants an ordinary life. And the mise en scène element is settings. I'll introduce you guys the scenes that works very well first, and the scenes that doesn't really work last. Since I can get all the pictures and all those elements in the movie, I'll show you the part directly and feedback. First of all, in the movie, it shows a lot of scenes that Peter Parker, the Spider Man, suffering from the memory of the dead Iron Man. And it appears from the very beginning of the movie, too. Peter hurriedly walks out of the press conference, leaving behind questions about Iron Man, and he sits alone on the rooftop of a building that covers the background of the city by half. This shows that he feels too much responsibility as a superhero and has no one around him to share his troubles as a superhero. So he suffers from any internal conflict. And in this very next scene, Peter gets dressed in ordinary clothes at home and gets ready for a school trip and gets on an airplane in a bustling airport. Inside the narrow plane, there are Peter's normal friends and normal passengers who will soon take off with him. It marks the beginning of Peter Parker's ordinary wanting story with the takeoff of a plane leaving to a foreign country. And in around 17 minutes and 50 seconds, school friends and teachers all enjoy a free and an enjoyable trip at the destination, but Peter watches them from afar under a pillar and goes to a souvenir store alone to buy a gift for his crush, MJ. This is seen, and it shows that the reality of Peter that he longs for mixing with ordinary people but can't. And in this scene, many fun and pleasant places are quickly and brightly presented, and this implies that disaster is coming soon. Around 27 minutes and 50 seconds, Peter and Ned are alone in the small sized hotel room, and they have a secret conversation about how Spider Man will cope with the monster and the girl he likes. Soon after they move to the bathroom, they encounter Nick Fury, who was hiding, and have a secret conversation again. The small hotel room alludes to the secret happening, and as soon as he moves to the bathroom, a more personal place in the house bathroom, Nick Fury fainted Ned with an anesthetic gun and tells Peter to come to the superhero base. The bathroom naturally approaches viewers as a secret place where very personal events occur. In about 30 minutes and 43 seconds, Peter and Nick Fury move to the underground headquarters where they establish the operation of superheroes. It's a secret base full of state of the art equipment, and this represents a sudden shift from a normal background of the life to a secret place, conveying the feeling of turning around each other. This suggests that Peter has no choice in acting as a superhero, which is an inseparable connection. Around 42 minutes and 20 seconds, school's itinerary suddenly changes to Prague in the Czech Republic. And they move to Prague. The school's hotel was originally a very low priced hotel, but the hotel reserved in Prague was upgraded to a very expensive one. These suggest that Nick Fury is involved, and that sudden unwanted changes in the destination means that the main character will be Spider-Man, so on, not Peter Parker, against his will. Later, in the hotel lobby, when school friends gather to hear a notice about room assignment, Peter wasn't there but watched them from afar, and when Peter came to his senses, the place was a superhero operation room again. In 42 and 55 seconds, Peter sits alone on the roof of a building at night, which is similar to the first scene, indicating that Iron Man's burden on Peter's shoulders and he still hasn't been solved. Soon after, Quentin comes to Peter, and the two quickly become close by having a deep conversation about Iron Man. A friend who can share Peter's troubles has emerged and suggests that the two will be very close. The Peter's lonely trouble is expressed on the empty roof of the night, and the person who can be with Peter at the same place can become close very fast by sharing their common grounds. There is very rare. Around 1 hour and 10 minutes and 46 seconds, Quentin was practicing acting on a set in European style structures and buildings, and there was a man who controlled a computer generated drone, and this allows us to see that Quentin is thoroughly plotting a real life manipulation scheme based on a plan. Computer drone and acting. After catching the Quentin's plot in 1 hour and 17 minutes, Peter meets Nick Fury and enters the ground office of a normal building, and it's a very different place from operating room. That was always a basement. There was no security equipment near around them, and the desks, chairs, and lights were all normal objects that we can all seen around our life. In addition, the left side of the room was all made of transparent glass. This shows that Peter is not safe, and soon he falls into a big trap designed by Quentin. After being helpless in his battle with Quentin, Peter faints out because of hitting by a train and woke up in a small jail in a rural town in the Netherlands. But Peter breaks the lock and escapes in the slack of surveillance, and soon Peter makes an emergency call to Happy, and Happy arrives on a fighter jet and lands it on the beautiful tulip field and escorts Peter. Here it is. This reveals that the story will develop happily in the future, like a beautiful tulip field. And lastly, I'll give one scene that doesn't really work with everything. A place that doesn't fit well appears around 35 minutes of the movie. Peter Parker leaves the hotel room after a sudden change in his school itinerary to Prague, gets on a black bus driven by an employee sent by Nick Fury. Then it stops at the rest stop in the middle. This indicates that Peter moves on as Nick Fury designed thoroughly. Then the bus driver signals Peter Parker to enter a room at the rest stop, and Peter enters the room. In the room, there was a female employee who came to deliver Peter a new Spider-Man uniform. She requests Peter to change to the uniform to check whether it fits or not. And Peter takes off his pants, but one of his friend, Brad, accidentally spots Peter half naked with a lady. He took a picture of it. Yeah. This part doesn't really relate with the scene because Spider-Man's identity is a top secret and all Nick Fury's men are kept in the dark, but the female staff asks Peter to change clothes in a place without any security devices, and the door wasn't even locked.
Hello, my name is Juhan Ashwin, and today I'm going to be talking about the costume and the makeup in Spider-Man Far From Home. So first I'm going to talk about the 4 suits that Spider-Man has. Of course, we got to talk about Spider-Man, who is the main character of the movie. So we see him with 4 suits: the Spider suit, the Homecoming suit, the Stealth suit, and the red and black suit, which we see him use at the end of the movie near the final battle, or at the final battle. So the first suit, Iron Spider, doesn't really make much of an appearance. We see it once in Aunt May's charity event. When everyone is this is there to answer some of the media's questions. That's the only time we really see him use it. Yeah, the suit, the homecoming suit, we see that twice. Once when that's in Peter Parker's bag when he's getting checked in Venice, and also when Nick Fury introduces him to the rest of the crew and Mysterio in Venice as well. The third suit. Now we'll talk about that. The stealth suit. We see that his main I guess appearance is in the fight with him and Mysterio, and Spider-Man and Mysterio have a fight with one of the elementals in Prague. Also, when Spider-Man goes to Berlin to talk to Nick Fury and to break the news that he's found out that Mysterio has been that Mysterio has been lying and faking about the whole thing, about all the elementals and all that. And of course, as I talked about, the red and black suit that he uses in the final battle. Again, that takes place in about a small sequence in the final battle. Also, we do see him in a very emotional scene, trying to make that suit and trying to bring back a little bit of nostalgia about Iron Man, and how he used to make his suits as well. Again, so those are the major, I guess, impacts or appearances that these suits make. So we'll talk about the two older suits, I guess, the Iron Spider and the Homecoming suit. The Iron Spider and the Homecoming, they don't really make that many difference or that many impacts, I think, that many appearances, because, well, I mean, they are older suits and there isn't much of a need to have them in these movies. Obviously it's great for that to be there for nostalgia purposes, and of course it helps to progress the story of Spider-Man and his character, but you do want to see changes in the suits to keep the Spider-Man character fresh, and as well as to show off his progression. And I think it's great that they have these suits in the movie, but it's also great that they don't make that much of an impact, in my opinion, and it really works well for the movie. It really helps you to understand the journey that Spider-Man goes through, especially in this movie, and as well as the connection that it has to the previous movies that Spider-Man has been in. Now the stealth suit, this is the first time that we see it in any Spider-Man movie. Again, his major appearance again is in the battle with one of the elementals with Rey Mysterio in Prague. In that fight, I think the suit really suits Spider-Man. Obviously, he's not really known well in that area in Europe, and so to have a suit that is very different to him, again, makes a lot of sense, as well as it really suits the whole vibe, the dark vibe, the battle going on at night. It suits that whole scene very well, that suit. But I think the second time that it's used when Spider-Man heads over to Berlin to talk to Nick Fury, again, I don't really think there's much of a need to have it there, because I mean, it's one of the reasons why I think that suit was made was probably to try and help hide Spider-Man's identity, especially from his friends, so that they don't really figure out who he is. But I mean, it's already proven from that point that MJ was able to find out who he was anyway, so regardless, there's really no need for him to use that suit when he has much better alternatives available, like the Iron Spider and Homecoming suit. Again, obviously, as I said, from the story point of view, it's great that it had relatively small roles. However, it wasn't mentioned why Spider-Man chose the stealth suit. I mean, this suit was made more by Nick Fury, where those other two suits were made by Tony Stark himself. And it has the crazy technology, and it's far more advanced than probably you'd expect the stealth suit. So again, the lack of, I guess, explanation as to why that suit was chosen over the other two probably better options really should have been given. The red and black suit, again, I feel that was underwhelmingly used in the movie. I mean, this was supposed to be Spider-Man's main flagship for this movie, the main suit that probably you're supposed to recognize him or remember him by in this movie. But again, didn't really make that impact probably as Marvel would have thought, would have wanted. I mean, again, I felt it rushed everything. They tried to cramp all of to show so that they try to cramp all of the powers being used into a small 20-minute segment in the movie. I mean, obviously you got to see everything that it was able to do, but again, it just felt too rushed. It just didn't make sense. I mean, it was very hard to keep up with, and the suit wasn't really didn't really get a chance to show its uniqueness, I guess, and why it's so special. Um, Again, it just felt like it was just any other suit that Spider-Man was wearing. Again, I feel that Marvel, they really should have done a better option with that. Um, Peter Parker in general, the way that he dressed, pretty casual, I guess. But you'd expect Peter Parker to wear these kind of clothing, just very generic boys' clothing. Nothing much, not a lot of fashion in it. But then again, I think probably what a lot of people, especially Marvel, probably would have been wanting to focus on was the suit itself, and that's probably what you'd remember him by. You'd probably remember him more as Spider-Man than Peter Parker anyway. Now we move to other characters. So first we talk about MJ. Her dress sense, so the way that she was dressed in the movie, was very inconsistent. I mean, sometimes you'd see her wear long pants and a sweater. Other times you'd see her wear a dress, like a long dress. It was very inconsistent. It made there was no real familiarity or between any of the sets of clothing that she wore. It didn't really. There's nothing. She didn't have a specific style as a lot of other characters felt, and I think Marvel really should have done better with that. I feel maybe they're a bit confused what kind of character she was or how they wanted to portray her dress sense, and I feel maybe they should have tried a little bit more work on that. Now talk about Flash. Flash, I think, complete opposite to MJ. They did a really good job with his wardrobe. I mean, you could see he's someone like who thinks he's very cool. He's a very flashy character. I mean, but he's also a little bit of a dork, and someone with his kind of personality. You'd expect him to dress how he does. You do see him wear sunglasses sometimes. He wears like a lot of bright clothing, bright shirts, and again, it suits his whole vibe, and I think it's really brilliant the way that they did Flash's clothing. And now Ned, talk about him as well. Similar to Flash, I think they did a good job with him. He's one of those characters I feel that would go more for comfort rather than to go for fashion, and I think that's really showed in the way that he's chosen to dress. I mean, we see him with wearing shirts over t-shirts. That's pretty much really all he wears in the movie, and again, it makes sense. It suits his character, and again, it was a really good choice by the wardrobe department of Marvel. Next, we talk about Nick Fury. Nick Fury, again, nothing much. He really looks the same in most movies. The way that he's dressed, a lot of black, basically all black. A lot of leather clothing. I mean, that's pretty much his signature, all the way from the comics to pretty much every movie that he's been in, and this one is no different. There really wasn't much of a need for them to change it. I think if they did, it would have had a lot of negative impacts. A lot of fans of Marvel and Nick Fury, they really would not have been happy with that choice, and he would have probably taken a lot of the character that we know Nick Fury as being, this secretive and stealthy character, to something else, something that we're not totally used to, and it will just completely ruin the character that they've built up for so many movies in the past. And in general, a lot of the other characters, for example, the group of other friends that were on the tour of Europe. I mean, again, they were given pretty generic clothing, nothing too unique. I mean, again, their roles were relatively small. They felt more like, I guess, glorified extras really than other characters. Again, their roles, the way they dressed, there wasn't much of a need to change anything. Even if they did try hard and to give everyone else their own unique look, nobody would have really realized anyway. So I think, again, it made a lot of sense for Marvel to do that. Now we'll talk about the makeup. The makeup makeup, I think, for most characters or in general, was relatively okay. I mean, nothing too special. It's quite realistic. It was well done. You probably wouldn't tell if a lot of characters had makeup. I think, again, characters like Flash, Ned, MJ, the makeup was done okay. I mean, you really wouldn't have noticed what kind of, or at least how much makeup there were. However, I do think Peter Parker's was very inconsistent. I think, especially when you look at him in the bus ride in Austria, you could see that he had these really red cheeks. They were very unnaturally red. But then when you shift over to him in the in the plane or the ship with With Happy, you could see that he's just completely pale, just completely the opposite. The only reasonable explanation that there would be is that if Peter Parker were to use makeup by himself in the movie, off screen, but again, none of that was mentioned, so you really have to just put it down to bad makeup from the makeup department. However, I do think that the way they did Peter Parker's makeup in battle, it was really great. I mean, you could see the way from the point before he put on his mask to the point after the battle, you could see how much he has changed. You could really see the cuts and the bruises on his face and how he's just been completely just beat up from fighting all those drones and Mysterio himself. Again, the makeup for the fight after the fight scene is really good from Marvel. I think they did a really good job with that. Same thing with Mysterio as well. I mean, you could see him obviously with a lot of his facial expressions when he was controlling, I guess, the illusions, and then when he actually had to get into a fight with Peter Parker, you could see how damaged and the bruises and the cuts that he had as well. It was really good makeup, I think, in terms of battle. You can also see the progression of these characters, how they've progressed and how much the fight has affected them and how much they've grown on the journey during each of these fight scenes. Again, brilliant makeup work from that sense from Marvel. So that's my take on the costume and makeup done for Spider-Man Far From Home. And yeah, thank you.